What's up, everybody? This is Dark Conservatarian, and welcome back to another episode of Strike Force News. And I have a little bit of a full one for you right here. The first one that we're going to review, the first article that we are going to review, is one that was actually shared by our co-host here, the Crusader. Say hi, Crusader.
Stop.
And often coming co-host is Loudmouth Reviews again. Say hey, Loudmouth.
Hey, Ron.
Yes, first article here is talking about feminism. It's a very recent article, actually, August 9th, 2019, so it's not completely irrelevant. It's not like we're pulling something up from the old ancient skeptic community versus SJW.
Oh, yeah, those great everyday feminism articles. Matt?
Yeah.
Remember 5 reasons not to bring up slavery when black women assert their sexual autonomy?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good one.
Even if you got a kink, don't do it, people.
Yeah, that was the joke I made. Yeah, but what if that's her kink, though?
And hello, JC Armitage in the chat there.
Like, seems like everyday feminism there was kink shaming, which isn't very progressive of them.
Their kink is kink shaming.
Yes.
Baby, I want to be your slave.
Yeah, do not shame anyone's kinks. Your kinks are all beautiful. Despite what everyday feminism might try to say about them, your kinks are good.
Reckless Trucker says in chat, what if I want to be the slave?
Exactly. Trucker?
That's okay, Reckless Trucker. You can have reverse slavery right there. Reverse.
Well, minus the Irish people.
Yes, you have the use of a strap on or whatever. I screwed up that joke. Never mind.
Yeah.
I killed my joke. My joke is dead.
But so the next 4 articles after that is going to be coronavirus, and more coronavirus. And the last one here,
CCP virus.
Yes, the CCP virus. Right. I'm sorry, I forgot to call it what it actually is. It's the CCP virus. And then going towards the end here, we're going to actually be reading this article, or at least one of the articles anyways, that goes talking about a Harvard law professor that unironically wants to ban homeschooling. And this story went quite the rounds around the internet that I saw, and so I thought, oh, juicy. But anyway, let's get right into it, shall we, folks?
Of course.
All right. I call it COVID-19 84. Fair enough, JC. 18 ways that women still aren't equal to men. If anyone tries to tell you otherwise, show them these statistics. Statistics, quote unquote. Let's see. Do you want to give some backstory, JJ, since you were the one who shared this article?
Oh yeah. So I ended up telling a certain feminist that goes by the name on TikTok, eBoy Alicia. She sent her fans after me. I got like 300 plus comments, and it got pretty dark. But some feminist later, who was actually kind of civil, I know, shocking. She basically said why they were still, oppressed and shit. I'm just like, can you show me evidence? And at first she was like, I don't really want to, but I was like, you have the burden of proof.
She did
an article.
She did not really want to provide evidence. So just her mere assertion is all that's enough, apparently.
Yeah, I might have misremembered it, but that's how I remember it.
Well,
but then
I don't need to provide evidence. I just know it.
Yeah, I mean,
why? Yes. Why?
Maybe
feminists should stop quoting no bullshit already. It's a bad idea. Look.
I don't need to provide evidence.
I just know
it. But yeah, but
I don't need to provide sources, you retard.
She might have been civil to you on the surface, but it was just such arrogant.
She was kind of passive aggressive, yeah.
Underneath what she was saying, yeah, exactly. But
I believe that it was proof.
I briefly looked at this article myself, and just looking at the titles, I know that some of this was going to be already past debunked shit. Some a good portion of some of the rest is gonna be petty shit, and some of it I can't remember. Maybe
Oh
there's
yeah,
one or two points
I'm
that
already
don't
predicting. I don't
exactly.
even know what the article is. It's all going to be the most trivial first world problems imaginable.
Like, how dare that man catcall me? How dare he just randomly say across the street, "You're beautiful."
What?
But
Someone finds me attractive? I'm oppressed.
Yes.
You know, the worst thing in the world is when someone else finds you attractive.
Now,
Just because it's rude doesn't mean it's oppression.
yeah, keep in mind that we're not necessarily condoning that kind of action, but it's really, really trivial, and
Yeah,
there ain't no real fix to that except going to round up people just for speech.
yeah. I know some dudes are shitheads. I know who say some inappropriate, dumb shit to chicks. Yeah, I know that shit happens, but it ain't a big deal. God, by comparison, it's nothing compared to a dramatically higher suicide rate, a dramatically higher workplace fatality rate, dramatically higher rate of homelessness rate, and all other things men face.
Reckless Trucker mentions a good point in regards to this. Disparity doesn't equal discrimination.
No,
Yeah,
it doesn't.
if somebody like falls in a particular way in society, that doesn't mean that actively government was discriminating against them, or even any people freely within society was discriminating against you.
Yeah, what if my dream job I've always wanted is to be a foot model? As a man, people are less likely to pay me money for pictures of my feet. I'm oppressed.
I don't want to envision your feet, loudmouth, but let's go.
I'm making a dirty joke.
The feminist movement has made gigantic strides over the years, but nearly a century since women were given the right to vote. The sad fact of the matter is we've still got a lot of work to do. Okay, oddly enough, I don't know. I would have to actually look into it, but somebody said something to me in regards to that. I can't remember who it was exactly, but somebody said something along the lines that there already was the suffrage. Well, I don't know if suffrage is the exact word, but basically women, in theory, were able to vote, just they had to own property. It's just that 99% of women did not own their own piece of property. So therefore, by default, they couldn't vote. But I don't know how true that is, but I'm just going to continue on.
Well, the Babylon Bee just posted a really funny article. It says the Chinese government lays off entire propaganda team as American media is doing their jobs for them. That's brilliant. I'm definitely retweeting that. I love the Babylon Bee. They're the best.
All right. So True Grave, how are you doing in the chat? And he also says TikTok is literally the video form of Twitter. Fair point. And I'm sure that Crusader could definitely sympathize with that.
Oh, I can agree because I got attacked by feminists. God damn it!
JC Armitage says, so that's why TikTok is complete cancer. Exactly.
No, that's
the politics and the cringe.
It's owned by communist China, so it's a national security threat too. Don't use TikTok.
I do it because I don't care, and I'll take a bunch of commie.
I mean,
I'm not going to say the word with me.
I mean, you realize
at
this very moment is looking at a bunch of American girls' ass thanks to TikTok. Sorry,
but anyway,
another attempted dirty joke, but whatever.
Sorry, but yeah, let's continue. Somehow, feminism remains a controversial word, even though the definition of feminism is impossible to argue with. I prefer the term egalitarian just to kind of avoid that kind of animosity. And here's the thing. Feminism does not just mean equal rights between the genders anymore. It means that men must practically bow and kiss the ring of women.
Which is fine.
That's why you use feminist in quotes.
Not the no.
Sorry, what? What you say?
I said, which is fine if that's your kink, but otherwise, no.
Yeah.
Right. Rational Outlaw is trying to get in the call, but his devices are not connected yet. So, I think he might be fully set up. And hello, Rational Outlaw. It's
hello, furry.
Come on the program.
Howdy.
Howdy, indeed. So, an effort to make sure every woman and every individual has rights equal to that of a cis white man, no matter their race, religion, gender identification, sexual preference, or anything else. Again, egalitarianism. But anyway,
Yep.
sounds like a common sense cause, right? Not for the modern day context. Well, in spite of a plethora of data proving that women are not equal to men in America, many people disagree with the premise of feminism, arguing that women already are equal to men, or that their gains haven't matched men's because they haven't worked hard enough.
Which is
The reason why it
objectively
is-
true that women are far less likely to work more dangerous jobs that
and work less hours,
in fewer hours. Yeah, which is
Yeah,
objectively
and
true.
maternity leave, and take care of your child.
We're definitely going to get into that later, but sorry to say, but women are not in manufacturing jobs near as much as men. That's one of the bigger contributors.
But those jobs are harder.
You know,
Yeah,
if they
And
actually
will
wanted
literally
to
cost
look,
you your life.
you
Sorry,
know, to
what,
show that there is no sexism pay between men and women is just looking at single women who are working and single men who are young single men who are working, and young single women on average make more than young single men.
Well, but the biggest reason why men out earn women and why men work more dangerous jobs is because of hypergamy. All right.
Oh yes. I'm just trying to bring up that there's also another thing is to show how that even certain areas where men and women, like if both are single, the women tend to make more. So that's to show that again, there's no sexism in there, and it's just differences.
But like a bigger thing that needs to be pointed out is it's been proven with overwhelming evidence in terms of mate selection. Women dramatically are more likely to discriminate against a man based on his finances than men are. There was one experiment where they would put different men in different cars, okay, and they found that women were more likely to rate the exact same man as more attractive if he was photographed in a more expensive car. Whereas the same experiment was done on men with pictures of women, what car the woman was sitting in made zero difference whatsoever. So men are borderline indifferent to how much money a woman makes, whereas women ruthlessly discriminate against men based on their finances. This encourages men to work more dangerous jobs.
They're biologically designed to go for the man who can provide for them. That's just
correct.
How we have evolutionary evolved, how men have evolved, and how men have evolved in a different way.
Yeah, hypergamy, and thus for a man who's average looking, who's not like a super good looking, you need a bit of money if you want to have any chance of attracting a mate. So that pushes you into more dangerous work. Whereas an average looking woman really doesn't need to do anything to attract a man.
Mm-hmm. I do want to say, JC Armitage in the chat, how much wait, Crusader, I was reading. How much you want to bet that these rights, quote unquote, these feminists are talking about are mostly positive rights, i.e., not actual rights? One example would be maternity leave, and in some cases, paid maternity leave. So that is a fair point. But what were you saying, Crusader?
I just want to make it clear for any women that see this that this is generally what happens. There are outliers.
Well, of course.
Yes, if you are like a manager in a manufacturing job, well, then good for you. That would.
Well, yeah, of course. Okay, when you talk about it, there's always outliers to any statistical trend, but
it's just we kind of have to say it because people get so butthurt now.
Hashtag not all. Yeah, okay.
I am also going to say there were like a couple of anecdotes within my personal life that I come across of people like having, or one of them was an actual female. Well, actually, no. What they did is that they actually had other people. They were related to people, females more specifically, that were like paid less than the men who was doing like exact same work, and just, you know, taking in all the considerations at their job as well. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's true, but that's anecdotal. And even today, I still I don't let the anecdotes outweigh the stats that I have read.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so continuing on, or that women and men are inherently and biologically different and cannot be compared.
I mean,
sexual dimorphism is a real thing, dumbass. I mean, you. All right. Do you think like the tail of a peacock is a social construct?
I mean,
it's purely biological.
I'm sorry, but that is kind of true because men are like that biologically more developed to be like of a higher muscle mass and to be of a higher, well, I don't bone density.
Higher bone density and higher muscle mass production.
Yeah, I mean the one way that females are tougher and stronger than men in is like in the nether regions, is from what I hear. But other than
But
that,
ours are very sensitive.
but other than that, there's a lot to talk about in like general physicalities between men and women. Now, obviously, there are the Amazonian women that could kick my ass, but that's not the general, not what generally happens. It's not what is generally the case.
They're outliers.
Mm-hmm. Others agree that women's rights are a noble cause. Yes, but that men's rights aren't given the same consideration.
That I kind of do agree with.
Courts.
Which is 100% true, but whatever.
In actuality, most feminists consider men also at a disadvantage because of the inequality between men and women.
That makes no fucking sense. How can there be an inequality that disadvantages both the two genders?
I think they're talking about different types of inequality.
I mean, different types of inequalities, but the way she worded that sentence didn't make much sense.
Maybe, I mean, fair enough. I mean, maybe there's like a few examples. I don't know. I've heard more feminists go on about the gender pay gap or dog whistling, for example, than go on about men in divorce courts. Oh, hey, dude, 77 is in the chat for, I think, the very first time with me hosting Strike Force. Pay discrimination does happen, but it's also illegal. So, yeah, he is right. In regards to the anecdote that I brought up a little bit earlier, it's also illegal.
Find evidence and report their ass.
So if it happens, she needs to take it up in a court of law. If she doesn't, that's on her. And no joke, I had a feminist argue that fighting that discrimination was also unfair because then she has to prove discrimination.
What?
If that's actual verbatim of what she told you, hey, dude, well then that's stupid.
That is absolutely fucking stupid.
Okay, thanks for the notification. Magog of Morscar is live on his secondary channel now. And I think I might just block my entire audience to him now, but no. Anyway, in actuality, most feminists, well, I already read that, so moving on. When we socialize men to not show sadness and fear, to provide financially and not emotionally, and to not seek mental health help, to name a few examples. Okay, well,
men only are socialized in that way because women discriminate against men who behave this way.
And it's men.
Women
it's men
are
and
attracted to stoic, unemotional assholes. They are not attracted to guys who cry.
It's gender roles made by both men and women, not just men.
Don't cry in front of a woman. See how much sympathy you get. All right,
exactly.
Okay, these three writers, Megan Friedman, Jenny Hollander, and Ine Kamanabo. That sounds Asian. But I don't know. Maybe you three gals are able to like fully acknowledge that. Good for you. But anyways.
Women pay more for common household items than men do.
Oh, yeah.
Who's money?
Let's get into
supply and demand, my dude.
Who's money?
Okay, we contribute to a culture that harms both men and women. At the same time, men, particularly cis white men, are statistically at an advantage when it comes to earning power, career progression, and a multitude of other factors. Feminism is the hard work that both men and women have to do to level the playing field. Here, the shocking ways women aren't yet equal to men in America. Okay.
Having to go shopping for household items more, that's real shocking.
The playing field. What if I don't want to share my hard welding and other metal work with my female coworkers, particularly when they don't outright want it? What if I? Oh, okay, that might be a weak example, but still. 1. Women pay more for common household items than men do. Shampoo, deodorant, even a 10-pack of socks are among the many products that cost more for women, according to an analysis by Marie Claire. Okay, so you're basically citing your own self because this is Marie Claire that we are reading right here.
You use your own citation. You fucking dumbass.
Okay, now to address the actual point right here. Okay, first of all, there's a very good video by Teal Deer that I had actually watched. I'll have to link it down in the description box below, actually, talking about of how that pink dye, which is like the stereotypical color that women prefer, is a little bit more expensive to make than, say, blue color dye or say no color when it comes to men's products. And also, nothing is forcing you women to buy the specific women-oriented products. You can literally just go into the men's aisles and like get a plain white pair of socks or something like that.
Or
you can get a regular men's edition of Head and Shoulders. Nothing is preventing you from buying those.
Yeah, what was really hilarious is they tried to paint men's razors and a pack of women's razors as being the same thing, but her thumb was covering up that there were 2 extra razors in the bag for women's razors, which is why it was more expensive. You know, let's see the level they could go to a lie about this shit.
Yeah.
You have to like.
Just to like put the cherry on top of my point, though, the fact that men's products are called men's products is arbitrary. They aren't literally just restricted to men. Women can buy them as well. Men's jeans would be another example. Yes, Crusader?
JC Armitage said something about the gendered products.
All right, yeah. By the way, if you think those gendered products are the same exact thing but with a different plastic color, they're not. Shoe on Head actually has a good video debunking this pink tax controversy. Well, okay, I thought that maybe there was a little bit more into making pink dye in comparison to blue dye, but maybe there is more to it than just that. So, all right.
Right, yeah. Teal Deer did a video. Teal Deer's videos on the subject were the best. He went through that really analytically.
And this next point is going on about the ever so repeatedly debunked gender pay gap. Women make less money than their male counterparts. Yeah, okay. As a
Equal Pay Act of 1963.
As a national mean compared to men, yes, women earn less. But when it comes to an actual working woman and an actual working man of the same exact workload, that's not the case. And if it does happen, then it's already against the law. So what else do you want? Do you want like a police officer to be in every single business in America to make sure that that doesn't happen?
The Equal Pay Act of 1963 is a thing for a reason.
What do you say?
The Equal Pay Act of 1963 is there for a reason.
Oh, okay. I thought you was like making expanding on my point of police officers in every business by trying to say 1984. But anyway,
what's really sad about these feminists and really how the best example of what spoiled children they are is the fact that they will complain both about earning less money than their male counterparts. And they want equal pay to all men out there, yet they'll also complain that they can't find boyfriends with more money than them. You can't have both. You cannot have both at the same time. It is impossible.
All right. So although the pay gap is narrowing, and I kind of blame the rising Mr. Mom culture in the U.S., women in the U.S. working full and part-time make 85% of what their male counterparts earn, according to the Pew Research Center. That's mean. I mean, from what I've always heard from the gender pay gap, again, that's just looking at the mean. That's not like looking at a median of like exact same circumstances. And plus, like I said earlier, there is a get out of my face conundrum. But anyway, I mean, like I said earlier, men take in more manufacturing jobs, and because men do typically actively take the higher paying jobs or the higher paying work fields, that is obviously going to contribute more into a higher mean, a higher average, national average of what men earn in comparison to what women earn. I mean, yeah, it's just a statistical fact right there. I mean, it's not actual discrimination, systematic discrimination. In other words, women would need to work an extra 40 days a year to make as much as men. It's an even grimmer picture overseas. Women worldwide make 77% of the amount paid to men, according to a report from the United Nations International Labor Organization.
That isn't the U.S.
Yeah, and also in other countries, they cut women's clits.
Yeah.
So,
And
apples to oranges.
And beat them to death if you commit adultery.
Right. And need 3 male witnesses to prove that a man raped you.
Mm-hmm. Which is fun.
Shall we go on? No, I didn't think so. But we're going to go on with the article. And hello, Lonely Wolf in the chat. Yes, we see you. Hello. Anyway,
Hello, senor.
we already have that. It's called an auditor says, hey, dude. Yes, exactly. 3, for Black and Hispanic women, the pay gap is even worse. Black women have to work 19 months to make what white men did in a year. According to the National Women's Law Center, that number is even steeper for Hispanic women, the center found. Okay. You cited Pew Research Center, and then you gone to an organization whose name alone, I kind of questioned the credibility.
And just as before, they don't examine other factors like number of hours worked, the type of work, the education level. They ignore all those other factors because it's inconvenient to their narrative.
This article is, in fact, being overly simplistic in their descriptions here. Women are okay. This is a funny one right here. 4, women are underrepresented in government. Although women make up nearly 51% of the U.S. population, only 25% of the Senate and 23% of the House is comprised of women, which fortunately or unfortunately makes the current Congress the most diverse in American history. Worldwide, just 24% of all national parliamentarians are female as of February 2019, according to the UN. What if women just naturally don't want to engage in politics as a generality? I mean, obviously, they're the Alexandria Cortezes of the world, but
even worse than that, it's been proven over and over again that women are actually less likely to vote for other women in office. Like when John McCain picked Sarah Palin as his running mate in 2008, he got a bounce in the polls more among men than among women.
That's ironic.
I mean, she was an attractive woman, I would say.
But
this is coming from the gay dude too.
Whatsoever that women are more likely to support female candidates. None.
Right. Yeah, and it is kind of funny because all the there was like all the popular female Twitter users who were like supporting Bernie. They were not going to Elizabeth Warren. No, they were going Bernie all the way.
Barbs for Bernie on TikTok.
Well, that's just because they had common sense and they knew Elizabeth Warren was a dishonest snake.
By the way, I do want to say that I'm going to have to end up purchasing the full version of StreamYard here soon because I got the watermark for StreamYard covering my face. Or I'm going to have to figure out some other way to use OBS because that's the thing that I am pissed off with YouTube removing their classic YouTube studio. I cannot do OBS anymore unless I'm wrong there. Okay. 5, women are the minority in the executive suite.
So,
at Fortune 500 companies, women currently account for just 25.4% of board members and 6.6% of CEOs. Okay. Is
this article going to later complain that women are the minority of the NBA?
According to Fortune. I mean, I don't know. I think they do go something along the lines of that a little bit later. But I mean, this is
the NBA.
Okay, the reason as to why this is the case is a similar reason that wasn't mentioned earlier about the gender pay gap. Why the gender pay gap or gender pay gap, quote unquote, more like an earnings gap exists. Is because not only is there the fact that more men are in manufacturing than women, and also other higher paying jobs as well. Let's not just stick to manufacturing. It's also because women, it's still typically the case. More women stay at home to tend to the family than men do. Instead of earning the income, they tend to the family.
Well,
So-
that and being a CEO is a very stressful job, and women like less stressful jobs and more jobs with more social connections.
And CEOs are more likely to be sociopaths as well, according
Yes,
to
it actually is true. Like a
Randall.
third of them are sociopaths, if I recall. There was a study done.
Which is why that you end up seeing a whole lot of women being like the front desk clerk of a business or something like that.
Hello, may I help you? While she's just filing her nails.
Oh, God.
That'll
But
I love
anyway.
that stereotype. It's funny.
But what I was wanting to say,
Like
but
that scene in
because of
Ghostbusters.
what you say, Loudmouth?
I said it's like that scene in Ghostbusters.
Right.
You believe in UFOs
Mhm.
and paranormal abductions.
But and so because of that, the fact that in general there are more women staying at home, it's obviously going to be the case automatically that there are going to be less women managers and CEOs just naturally because of that. You know, in short, what Loudmouth said earlier, hypergamy.
Not because of men, but because they aren't pushing for it.
Yeah, men earn more money because they have to, because women discriminate against men for their earnings more. All right, that's just evolution, huh? Women could solve all this by marrying more broke dudes, but I guarantee you they ain't going to do that.
Lonely
Or
Wolf
being
1980.
more, as you would say,
Lonely Wolf says it's the apex fallacy problem. Most of the earnings gap is in high earning jobs with little consideration for the lower earning professions. Yeah. And he also says, for fuck's sake, if you're already working for Fortune 500 companies, you're in a pretty good position.
Yep.
But apparently,
That's what I'm saying. This is the definition of petty first world problems right here.
yeah. And hello, Cuddlefish. It's nice to see you stopping by. And also, hello, Mikhail. Did not say hi to you earlier. Studies also found that women CEOs of Fortune 500 companies have significantly shorter tenures than male CEOs. Is that generally by choice? They just want to go back to their families or whatnot? Women at the top tend to stay in their positions for about 44 months on average compared to the 66 months that men do. There are, however, some positive changes happening. Positive, in your opinion, I'm going to guess right off the bat. 27% of all standard and poor 500 board seats are now occupied by women. CNBC reported that Dallas-based online car auction site Copart added its first female board member in July, marking 2019 as the first ever year where every S&P company has at least one woman on its board. You want a cookie?
is that because y'all are forcing them, or is it because they're actively getting out and trying to do it more?
I love my housewife life, says Miss Cuddlefish. You do, Cuddlefish.
Plus, if Kathleen Kennedy was a man, she would have been fired years ago.
Yeah.
After her numerous fuck ups, the fact that she still has a job really just shows how much in the executive field that women are actually favored.
Kathleen Kennedy, Susan
Kathleen
Wojcicki.
Kennedy is living proof of that.
Stark
Fuck Susan
example.
Wojcicki.
What?
Fuck Susan Wojcicki. She ruined you too.
Yeah. Never mind the fact that per CNBC, no women cracked the list of the top 5 highest paid CEOs in the stock market index.
Look at the
Oh,
hypocrisy of the
boo
left on this matter. All right, they say that the billionaires shouldn't exist, and yet they also complain about the lack of female billionaires. Make up your fucking mind.
Yeah, for real. That is such hypocrisy.
Good point. But also, I go looking at a list like that, I'm thinking to myself, that's not in of itself.
Yeah, that's like complaining that there's not enough female dictators.
Or there's not enough female suicide bombers.
Yeah, I cannot believe that people were like celebrating when they thought that the North Korea might have a female dictator. Yeah, a real victory for feminism that showed that women could be just as oppressive and brutal
And funny
dictators
thing,
as men.
funny thing, Reddit is getting all horny for the possible new dictator as well.
Yeah, that's
Actually,
really
that Kim Jong-un is still alive.
The Kim regime has murdered tens of millions over the decades, and they hold 25 million people in essentially poverty and enslavement to the state.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's celebrate that if one of them has a badge. I just can't fathom that kind of moral retardedness.
For real. And sexualizing them, even though they're a complete horrible piece of shit.
The Kim regime is evil beyond words. The shit they've done over the decades to maintain power.
It might even be worse. It might even be worse than her brother. Us women can be unimaginably cruel, says Miss Cuttlefish. It's true.
I'm not going to claim that she's worse than her brother, but I doubt she'd be much better.
I think I don't know if this is one that you might have read or not, Crusader. I was not paying exact attention. Us women can be unimaginably cruel, says Myth Cuttlefish. Oh, come on. You're not cruel, Myth Cuttlefish, only to the assholes that go mistreating this channel. Well, mistreating, that's the wrong wording, but
I know some women that'll kick my ass.
But just, anyway.
Yeah, Lonely Wolf, murderous dictatorship should be intersectional, exactly.
Oh, geez.
You got to make sure that the stormtroopers that are enslaving millions and putting people in concentration camps are properly diverse.
Let's prop Riley Dennis up to be the next brutal dictator of Syria.
Exactly.
Oh, jeez.
6. Women are also the minority in the news media. So, are you going to say, okay, are you going
I've
to
seen
say
more female
why
news
that is-
anchors than male news anchors.
What? You see more female news anchors than male news anchors? Is that what you said,
Yes,
Crusader?
I've seen
But I'm
more
just like,
women news
who
anchors.
gives a shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering
it's
too.
petty.
Okay. All the people, this is my problem with people. All these people that go talking about, oh, there's this disparity right here. There are too many rich people, or the rich are too rich, for example, or there's not enough women in politics and whatnot. I mean, they like to talk about the resulting stat, but they don't want to talk about the why that is. They do not get down to the bottom of why that is. I mean, we do not care about the what. Us more on the right, and all the anti-SJW types, as I use that term loosely. We do not care about the what, we care about the why. I mean, if, say, for example, a woman is like literally being slapped across the face, abused at the job, and not being paid in comparison to the male counterparts, of where that the male is like constantly on his phone, knowingly too, and the female is like busting her ass and she's still not being paid equal. Well, then that would be the why as to how they're still unequal, just as an arbitrary example. But you're not talking about the why, you're just talking about the what. And we don't care about the what. The Women's Media Center's 2019 edition of the Status of Women in the U.S. Media reported that though women comprise 41.7% of the overall... 41.7%? That's pretty freaking equal right there.
That's a lot more close than the CEO bullshit.
Really? You are going to bitch and gripe about an 8.3 or... Well, okay. For men, it would be like 58.3%. You're going to gripe at that because they're 8.3% away from being 50%? Really?
50-50 may be ideal in your eyes, but it's not very likely. There's going to be a majority and minority.
Yeah, well, was this written by like Equinox, that Batman villain who's like obsessed with Batman?
The overall news media workforce, they aren't being compensated appropriately. Gendered pay disparities are still observable in newsrooms of major outlets like the Associated Press, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal, with men earning substantially more than women. Men are also more of the times the top dog hosts in those mainstream media sites. I mean, Megyn Kelly was one of the top dog hosts over at Fox News for a time, but she retired. She went on to NBC or whatever it was, and I think she got fired from that job, or maybe it was MSNBC. I can't remember exactly, and I don't know where Megyn Kelly is now. But for the top dogs, you have Sean Hannity, Chris Matthews, Joe Scarborough. You could go on for
Wolf Blitzer
days. Yeah, Wolf Blitzer, Tucker Carlson. But I'm not going to go on much further. Again, you're not substantiating the why that is with that last statement. No, okay, right before this, not to mention frying pans. LOL says, Mikhail, what are you talking about right there?
Women occupy the kitchens, and there's a lot of knives, like Clone the Wolf said.
Anyway, and they're in the minority in the tech sector too. Currently, only 25% of American computing jobs are held by women, disclosed DreamHost in its annual State of Women in Tech address, and that's actually down substantially from previous years. It can be attributed in part to the simultaneously, declining number of female college students planning on entering the tech sector. Of the women enrolled in universities across the country, just 20% were studying engineering. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to start forcing more women to study engineering?
People have choices. You shouldn't be forcing them to be equal exactly in that work field if they don't want to be.
And only 18% were computer science minors. I'm sorry,
oh
but
my gosh.
just looking at the education
Who's
stats,
stopping them from becoming computer science minors?
It's definitely not societal pressure.
just looking at the stats that you are providing right here, Marie Claire, you are shooting yourself in the foot. You're proving it to yourself that you're proving it to everybody that women just naturally and generally don't want these kind of positions. So not a big deal. First world problem. Get off of it.
What about industries where women are the majority? Are y'all gonna be equal and bitch about men not being more in it?
Yeah.
No, you don't speak of it.
We know of how much that you want to be a fashion model, JJ, but I think you need to lose weight first.
Fuck you.
Okay. The turnover rate of female employees in tech is also disturbingly high. Whereas only 17% of men in the industry leave their company at a given time. 41% of women in tech resign from their positions.
Are they supposed to let women who can't do their jobs keep their jobs just because they're women? What the fuck?
With 56%
that is just straight up
group
discrimination.
Yeah. What? If you can't code, you get fired in that industry. You need to code. And running code that successfully is hard. I've done it.
Don't say that.
Yeah, coding is pretty difficult.
Cream pulled down loudmouth. No, I'm joking.
Oh.
Yes, learn to code. This
but learn to code.
Exactly. Because violating.
Maybe that's why YouTube is at shit. They hired a bunch of inoperable women.
They hire a bunch of women who don't want don't even want the job. Yes.
It's literally ran by them.
Mostly joking at that last statement, but
yeah, of course.
Anyway, 8. When women enter male-dominated industries, the pay decreases.
Equal Pay Act. They keep ignoring it.
As women make the crossover into workspaces mostly occupied by men, often in search of higher salaries with more benefits, the opposite actually happens. The average pay for the industry tends to drop significantly over time, confirms the New York Times. Oh yeah, because the New York Times such has credibility. Oh god. 9. Female entrepreneurs receive less funding and investments. Oh god. Again, address the why. I mean, like I said, for some
maybe
of
they
this
just
stuff,
aren't driven enough.
For some of this stuff, I don't have the evidence or anything like that to give my own explanation as to why this is, but I'm still waiting for them to explain the why. I mean,
this article is what Bill Barr was fighting against.
I mean, what if
you remember what Bill Barr said? Dude, women are just constantly patting themselves on the back about how difficult their lives are, and no one corrects them because they want to fuck them.
Except for maybe the gay ones.
Yes, like the number 10, women still shoulder more of the household burden. And far more men are currently at the bottom of a coal mine. What would you rather do? Be Would you rather be looking after a toddler in the sunshine or be drilling to the center of the earth, shaking hands with the devil?
Okay.
And basically waiting for a rock to crush you.
Yeah.
JC Armitage mentioned something in the industry. By the way, women in porn get paid more, yet you won't hear any feminist bitch about the unequalness of that industry.
No, of course not.
Yep.
It's almost because it's almost like female sex workers are in more demand because men are hornier in supply and demand. But yeah, fuck supply and demand when men are disadvantaged.
Yeah, fuck that.
As Ben Shapiro once said, the only color that the economy cares about is green.
Yep.
9. Female entrepreneurs receive less funding and investments. Okay. Getting funding for a startup is hard enough, but sexism and gender inequality often complicates starting one's own business even further. According to findings from All Rays, never heard of that organization, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the success of female entrepreneurs.
Remember the organizations dedicated to their success? Like, yeah. Anywhere?
Wow.
You gotta help the women because they're incompetent without us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's almost an insult to women right there.
Yeah, saying you need our help to be successful because of some imaginary problem.
I find it kind of ironic. I mean, why aren't you helping the men? It seems kind of sexist for you to be only helping the females. And now, next, I'm going to start up my own white people only organization of helping white entrepreneurs or startups.
Imagine how racist you'd be called.
Oh, very, very indeed. Oh god, all these stream notifications. Jeez. Anyway, only 11% of venture capitalists are women. Of the existing VC firms that exist, 71% don't have a single female partner, and only 7% have equal gender representation.
Maybe because they don't choose to do that?
Because
it's not as secure as other jobs?
I mean, yeah, exactly. What if the females just generally not ambitious enough, not desiring enough in general of
not
that
driven
position?
enough?
I mean, again, as I said earlier, explain the why. Women interested in running their own startup usually meet difficulties when it comes to securing the capital. I think they mean money when they say capital, by the way. And All Rays predicts that the number of female VCs will continue to plateau and possibly even decrease over time if nothing is done to change the current industry.
Why would you want to change it if they don't want to go into that line of work?
Seems to
That's
be
like saying, oh, you have to work in this area.
Back slavery. Oh, you don't want to work? Well, you need to be forced to. Or else.
You don't want to work in this area? Well, we're going to force you because you have no choice.
This is so stupid. I can't take it.
Exactly. It's just petty bullshit.
Wolf says, I'm one of those males who works in a very female-dominated profession. I'm the only man in my office and the most junior. I take orders from whammons all the time. And he also asked, why should JJ receive less for bathwater and women receive more? Misandry.
Pretty much the same joke I made earlier with the feet thing, but whatever.
10. Women still shoulder more of the household burden. Well, women stay at home more than men, so
because it's less stressful.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry that that's
any job that you can do in your pajamas, okay, is not a hard job. Okay.
I'm sorry that's how the pieces fall, but that's how the pieces fall unless you artificial.
Going on a road, being a trucker on an icy road, or working at the bottom of a coal mine, or flying an airplane, or all those things that men are out doing are a lot more difficult than the household burden. Fuck off.
Although I will say that working at being a home husband or home wife, it's not easy, but it is easier than working in a coal mine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but they're bending over to put DVDs into DVD players. How did I do it?
Unless you're living with a very true psychopath, but psychopaths, what's the ratio for how many psychopaths and how many normal people, Loudmouth? You know, that's
3 to 4% of the population are psychopaths.
Do you say 4%?
2 to 4, somewhere between that.
Okay,
pretty
so
low.
yeah. So basically, the likelihood of a stay-at-home mom being forced to stay at home with a psychopath is pretty fucking low.
Yep.
So anyway, despite the fact that women are more educated and more employed than ever before, they're still tasked with the majority of household duties. Forbes reported that 54% of women take maternity leave, while just 42% of men take time away from their jobs. Additionally, women are taking 10 times as much temporary leave to be with their newborns than men do.
What, I'm supposed to take care of my kids? The hell?
Well,
God forbid.
I am going to say that this is kind of odd.
We should be like sea turtles. We should just lay our eggs on the beach and just wait for them to come home when they're adults.
And then they walk home, yeah.
I don't think this is intentional or even institutional sexism, but it is kind of how the pieces fall. Women just naturally end up feeling more attached to their kids than men do because men are too busy
But this
working.
is a sign of privilege. This is not a sign of hardship. Being able to stay home, all right, is actually pretty fucking awesome. Not having to go to work is actually kind of awesome.
Yeah, we don't get to stay in our pajamas. Lugging toddlers around is not always fun. Says Miss Cuddlefish.
Well, I know I'm exaggerating to be funny, but I know the taking care of kids is hard. I know. I'm not saying it's like all sunshine and rainbows. Okay, I'm just joking around.
Right.
It is not as hard as driving a truck over ice or working at the bottom of a coal mine.
Mm-hmm.
It is just not.
All right. So, Mikhail says, so women take time off to give birth, and this is somehow a bad thing. I mean, I guess so. I mean, biology is sexist, y'all.
Yeah, we should figure out a way to, like I said, just lay our eggs on the beach. Wouldn't that make life a lot less complicated if we were like the sea turtles? I mean, sure, a big chunk of them might get eaten by seagulls, but it's just the price you pay to be a strong, successful woman.
Let's engineer our entire species to be nothing but males and lay eggs, kind of like the Mocklins do from the Orville. I don't know if you ever saw that series, Loudmouth, but it's pretty good.
I've heard good things about it.
If you have a Hulu, go check it out.
All right.
Often saddling them with additional financial burdens. Women are also more likely to work from home, look after sick kids, or even quit their jobs completely to be caretakers. Keyword there, quit. Basically, they're doing it of their own. They're basically doing it of their own consent. Is that really a bad thing? No.
No, because it's a non-issue that you can't control.
11. Women are far more likely to be victims of human trafficking.
Okay, this is the first real problem this article has actually brought up.
Yeah, that's a real problem.
That's obviously a thing because if you have a dude, are they going to, and they like trying to traffic another dude, they're more likely to try and kill them. Whereas a woman, they feel like they have
I don't know if you remember.
I guess guys are gonna fight back.
Yeah, hold on.
More muscle mass.
Hold on. I don't know if you remember that case of those Nigerian girls who were kidnapped by Boko Haram.
Boko Haram.
Well, yeah. People were one person said something that really pissed me off when they said that there would be more attention if the boys were abducted. I wonder if that bitch was aware of the fact that Boko Haram didn't abduct the boys in the school because they literally killed all the boys.
They will kill. If I'm not wrong, they kill man and boys, and even I think threw like a male baby infant to the ground and killed it.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Really disgusting shit Boko Haram did there.
I mean,
really disgusting shit. And want to know what the name Boko Haram means? It literally translates to education is forbidden. Boko means education. Haram means forbidden. Education is forbidden.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, this goes back to biological generalities as well, because again, with the whole thing of men being generally stronger than women, it kind of ties in as to why that humanity is the way it is ever since the beginning of time. When it comes to war, wait, when you have like invading armies, the invading army is more likely to kill the men and kidnap the women and maybe even sometimes rape them. And
human trafficking is a serious problem, and it is a very real problem. that does affect women. So all the previous problems this article brought up were complete bullshit, but that is genuinely something serious. But
Yeah.
But a lot of these networks that brutalize human traffic women do often do worse and kill and brutalize men as well. So it's not just an exclusively female problem.
Well,
Although
yeah,
I do
there
want to
might be-
mention. Go
Are you
right
saying,
ahead.
I was going to say they might be more likely to face human trafficking, but if you also look at it statistically, men are more likely to be assaulted than women, and they're also, if you include prison rape, men are more likely to be raped.
Yeah, they are definitely they are because of how.
Now, obviously, the perpetrators are also men, but still, that's another thing to bring up.
So, in a January 2019 article, NPR reported on the disturbing recent uptick in human trafficking using data from an annual report conducted by the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, UNODC. The study found the number of girls forced into trafficking has risen exponentially, most frequently for sexual exploitation. Sexual exploitation remains the most common form, of human trafficking. Forced labor isn't far behind.
And you know why it's increased? Entirely because of communist China's one-child policy, which has created a gender gap in China, the most populous nation on earth, that has led to a massive demand for women in that country due to that disgusting policy from communist China. So don't be blaming us for that. Blame the Chinese Communist Party for that shit.
Well,
I want to mention a couple things as well.
The evidence that all the trafficking rings are like selling their females to China.
Not all, but a huge number are. Women are trafficked into China, often from Pakistan and in North Korea. They're told that they can escape the Kim regime in North Korea by being trafficked into China, but in reality, they're often sold and abused.
Oh God! Choosing between China and North Korea, that's like choosing between cancer and herpes.
Right, the Uyghurs, the Uyghurs in China's Shanghai region, frequently the men are taken into custody and used as slave labor, whereas the women are distributed among Chinese men.
Mikhail is laughing at the line that I said earlier. Biology is sexist. LMAO.
Yeah.
I want to mention a couple things because.
So yeah, that is a serious problem this author's bringing up, but she of course doesn't blame the main group responsible, the Chinese Communist Party.
I will say that human trafficking, it is a legitimate issue. It is a legitimate sexist issue, by the way, but it's already considered illegal to human traffic. I mean, what more do you want? Do you have a plan or something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway,
I want to know how much is in the U.S. compared to second and third world countries where it is a major issue because they're not protected by the same laws.
Right.
Because in the U.S., it not only is it illegal, but probably less likely to happen than in second and third world countries.
All right. Female soldiers face rape and harassment. This year, an Smithsonian study conducted in conjunction with American military newspaper Stars and Stripes, 66% of female service members reported experiencing sexual harassment or sexual assault. That number is way up from the 27% that the Defense Department reported just 4 years ago in 2015. You guys have anything to say in response to that?
I have to do research to know how accurate that claim is.
Same.
Yeah.
So until then, I'm just not going to say anything.
I mean, if all or even most of that 66% is actual sexual assault, well then
I'm very skeptical of that claim, but at the same time, I can't really.
Yeah.
I don't
Or even
Probably just accusations.
or even if it's harassment of the physical kind or like constant verbal harassment, even then, yeah, it might be a little bit of an issue. But if it's just like a one-off kind of sexual comment made, well then it's wrong of them to do that. But it's not an existential crisis. If
It's sort of like big issue as say getting raped.
Okay. Women overall are at a greater risk for rape and domestic violence.
You factor in prison rape, that's flat out not true.
And also, if I'm not wrong, men are more likely to be victims of domestic violence as well, because women are more likely to be the instigator.
Yeah, and well, it showed like among homosexual couples, male couples actually have a lower domestic violence rate than straight couples, but lesbians have a higher domestic violence rate than straight couples.
So it's more of like a woman's nature, if anything.
I'm not going to go there, but it's
okay. Well, not nature, but like it's more likely.
To the general claim being made in the title of this claim right here, Johnny Depp would like to have a word with you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Amber Heard.
My greatest regret in life was that I ever, at any point in my life, masturbated to Amber Heard.
Yeah, I feel like that is a bad.
Sorry, dirty humor. Yes, I know.
Wow.
No, not to Amber Heard, no, because Amber Heard is evil.
Absolutely disgusting.
So, she can look like Christina fucking Hendricks, but if I hear that she is like the perpetrator of domestic violence, I'm just gonna walk out.
Those audio clips just filled me with rage. Well, she is absolutely despicable.
I'm just
I almost cried after hearing
reference back to the everyday feminism clip there, loudmouth. So I was listening.
I don't know.
Anyway, women overall are at a greater risk. Okay, the National Domestic Violence Hotline reports that females ages 18 to 24 and 25 to 34 generally experience the highest rates of intimate partner violence, IPV. 81% of those women who may have experienced rape, stalking, or physical violence by an intimate partner reported significant short or long-term impacts such as post-traumatic stress disorder, symptoms, and injury. Okay, now I mentioned Johnny Depp there, but as far as the stats go, I do not exactly know the full story of that, so I don't know. I guess I'll give like the benefit of the doubt for that, about that. But my question is, it's not institutionalized, like it's already illegal to do that shit. What more do you want after that?
And hell, under the Duluth model, men are presumed the instigator regardless of the facts at play.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's just flat out wrong.
All right. 14 retired women are twice as likely as retired men to live in poverty. As women make less money but live longer, a clear issue presents itself. You kind of devolve your own argument just a little bit by mentioning the fact that women live longer at that point.
Yeah, living longer is not a sign of oppression. That's kind of a very privileged thing.
I mean, and if you go living longer, it's obvious that you are going. If you go end up, say, a man and a woman are pretty much the same age and retire at about the same time, and the woman lives considerably longer than the man, obviously you're going to end up with the case that a woman at some point in their life is going to have a higher chance of living in poverty and probably a longer time living in poverty than the dude did after retirement. So thank you for involving your own argument.
And if I'm not wrong, men are more of the homeless population than women, so you're forgetting about that as well.
Like, I think it was 2/3 are men.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. 70% of the homeless population is male. Yeah.
Land O'Lakes butter.
Lonely Wolf in the chat. Land O'Lake butter. Change the logo because it's progressive to take the Indian away and keep the land on the package.
You know what's interesting though?
I heard that.
Like, what's interesting is that the son of the artist who redesigned that logo, he's native, and he has condoned the removal of disapproved the removal of that native character, and he himself said he was an activist against insulting imagery towards natives, and he himself had said that it was not an offensive imagery of a native.
No, if I'm not wrong, it was based off of a type of tribe in Minnesota as like an honor.
I do want to.
Yes. Well, I don't know about the Minnesota part, but yes, it was designed to be respectful and show pride.
I do want to say that. Oh God, what was I gonna? I forget. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. 14. Retired women are twice as likely as retired men to live in poverty. As women make less money, I already read, I think.
Yeah, you already read that.
Read it in full. Oh, no, I just read the first sentence was all. As women make less money but live longer, a clear issue presents itself. The longer a woman is on Earth, the more money she needs to have in order to survive. Well, no shit, Sherlock. And again,
That's
you go
pretty obvious.
a longer lifespan. So that seems to be, like, in a way, a bit of female privilege right there.
Yep. You live longer, that's a privilege.
And I'm not even going to call it some systemic or institutionalized female privilege. It's just there, and I'm not going to
biologically.
I mean, if men like to do dangerous shit that ends up hitting themselves in the balls multiple times, and they get testicular cancer, and that's the reason.
Doesn't increase your likelihood of testicular cancer, dude.
I'm joking, loudmouth.
Okay, yeah.
I'm joking, but
it's not.
Point remains, though, if men are going to, like, of their own consent, do more dangerous shit, then women will, and that's what ends up degenerating their own lifespan. Well, then that's not institutional. That's men of their own volition.
That's what happened to men in the oil field. They ended up getting mesothelioma and passing because they got it.
Mm-hmm. Right, but anyway, enough of my explaining as to why I won't bitch about that. But anyway, around 3 out of 7 women who want to retire by age 67 will seriously struggle with saving, says CNBC. Well, stop buying so many damn shoes and makeup then. No. Completely joking, but anyway, survey results from Aon, AON, never heard of them. A global risk retirement and health consulting company show that most women have an average of about 7.6 times their salary saved by that age, when they really need to save 11.6 times what they make yearly. I mean, if part of the issue is
more
of their own volition, not of their own consent, taking their life and savings into their own hands, well, then that, again, that's not institutional.
You got to do it yourself. You can't play oppression.
It's crappy that it happens, granted, but if a person is going to fall on their own sword, that is, by definition, not institutional. 15. Women of all ages are, in fact, more likely than men to live below the poverty line.
That's bullshit.
And yet, the more homeless men than women. As
so that pretty much disproves that.
I mean, I don't know the actual statistics. Do you know roughly what the statistics are of that, Loudmouth?
On homelessness, I'm aware it's like 70% men.
70% men. Yeah. So take that in consideration to debunk your own bullshit, Marie Claire. Across the U.S., 15.5% of women live in poverty, compared with 11.9% of men. Yeah, except I bet more of those women have houses in comparison to those men that you cited. According to a report from the Institute for Women's Policy Research. Oh my gosh. Just reading the names of some of these organizations right there, they sound biased. Sorry.
They are obviously biased.
I'm not going to say with an absolute confidence that they are biased, but just looking at the names alone, it just seems that way.
It seems like they're spreading false information to push a narrative.
I cannot help but feel suspicious. But
neither can I.
That number worsens for Black, Hispanic, and Native American women. Worldwide, the majority of the more than 1 billion people living in poverty are women, according to the UN.
Okay. Yet more men in poverty, living on the streets.
Well, that's a worldwide statistic. Well, the 70% statistics from the United States. I'm not really sure what the global figure is.
True. Mm-hmm. Now, if they're speaking about the rest of the world, then
yeah, it might be different in other countries. So,
16. Women in Hollywood aren't given the same opportunities as the men in industry.
Hollywood is corrupt as fuck.
That is bullshit.
That is complete bullshit, and Hollywood is pedocentral.
Oh. But what do you have to say in regards to the statistics debunking that claim, Loudmouth?
I don't even know where to begin. It's complete and utter BS. Hollywood has literally tried bankrupted several projects because they've been obsessed with including strong, independent women in all kinds of movies.
Yep.
Yeah, you can look at the last Terminator movie, Charlie's Angels remake, total box office bombs. I remember trolling Elizabeth Banks on Twitter after her movie bombed and said, "Girl, I didn't know your movie could suck like that. Charlie, how your angels could flop like that."
What was the same movie that was coming out during Alita?
Huh?
What was the same movie that people complained about not seeing, but they saw the Alita Angel movie? It was like last year, I think.
Yeah, but I actually like that one.
I know. No, I'm saying the one that came out at around the same time that the people that
Captain
they left
Marvel?
complaining that they didn't go see.
Captain Marvel, yeah, that was very successful. That one actually was a hit.
Oh no, I know the Lita one was a hit. I'm just saying there was one that
no. He was saying that Captain Marvel was a hit. Is he's trying to ask, is Captain Marvel the one that you're thinking about, Rash?
Well, yeah, I guess is Captain Marvel the one.
Well, it was mostly a hit though because it came out like 6 weeks before Endgame, and mostly because it was needed to fill in the cliffhanger between it and Infinity War.
Either way, they complained about them seeing about the Alita movie, which made no sense.
I can go on a whole spiel about how I would improve Captain Marvel, but I think that is for like another stream, for a hangout stream on my second.
When it showed how Nick Fury lost his eye in that movie, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
That was bullshit. That was
I was actually I'm like, no.
You turned Nick Fury into a bitch. Well, at least anyway. In that one moment, anyways. Other than that, he was all right in that movie. Anyway, behind the scenes, women working in Tinseltown make up only a small portion of the workforce. According to the New York Film Academy's 2018 Gender Inequality in Film infographic, the ratio of men to women working on films is 5-to-1. There are 7 times as many men writing film scripts as there are women, and women only account for 11% of directors in Hollywood across genres. Well, you better be talking to your leftist buddies there in Hollywood because, yeah, they're already left-leaning themselves. So,
ooh, this last one, I like this one. I can discuss it.
So anyway, and they certainly aren't paid the same. This being number 17. Back in 2018, the film All the Money in the World made headlines, but not for the reasons one would expect. It was revealed that Mark Wahlberg made $5 million to do necessary reshoots for the movie, while his co-star Michelle Williams only received $625,000. Shocking.
Because Mark Wahlberg is a much more famous actor. He's a much bigger who draws in a bigger crowd.
And he gets more deals, like outside of movies.
What?
See what happens when they bring up anecdotes? It flops on.
Jennifer Lawrence was paid more than Chris Pratt in that movie they did together because she's a bigger actor than Chris Pratt. That's how it works.
Chris Pratt is amazing.
And also, another thing about this statement, they said that Mark Wahlberg came back to do necessary reshoots. They did not say Michelle Williams did that as well, so it's obvious that you would get paid more for the higher effort.
Another thing to look at is whether they did their own stunts or not, or certain stunts.
Yeah,
that too.
All right.
I think, and Mark Wahlberg, I mean, he's a decent actor in certain roles, but he's been in some trash movies.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The Sound of
Happening
Silence
is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
I guess next is the athletes. Okay, that's.
Oh, I get to discuss it because I know it very well.
Finish this off, and then we'll get on to number 18. Shocking, but not at all uncommon in Hollywood. Forbes reported that actresses earned only about 35% on the dollar compared to their male counterparts in the industry. 18. Despite being as successful as male athletes.
Oh, shit.
That is.
I mean, I just
fucking shit.
I just read the title of that itself when I first looked at this article, and I was thinking to myself, bullshit. The NFL. That NFL is proof there that male athletes are more successful than female
compared
athletes.
to the lingerie football league.
Far more people view male athletes view their games than female athletes. That's why they make more
Because
money.
men are more talented generally.
That's even besides the point. It's about who draws a bigger audience. It's not about who's more talented. All right, more people watch the Super Bowl than watch the WNBA. That's just how the fuck it is.
Oh yeah. For example, I'm sure. Does this bring up the soccer team? I'm sure it probably does.
I'm not so sure. Oh, yeah, it does mention the soccer team, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, this goes back to like physical, biological generalities. I mean, male being stronger and faster, they're going to put on more of a show for sports, and therefore they're going to attract more of an audience and get more money for the industry. So
Hold up, I could probably look up some WNBA or like female soccer like film, and it'll show you how bad it actually is compared to the actual NBA.
But that's all subjective. It's just kind of who watches more. If the woman WNBA got the same ratings as the male NBA, they get the same amount of pay. It's all about you're paid for the audience. Just like with a YouTube channel, you make more money off your channel if more people watch your videos.
And male athletes get more endorsements as well.
Granting that you don't get completely demonetized.
Assuming you don't get demonetized, yeah.
And it also depends on what kind of contract you also sign, because the women have, like, for example, in the soccer teams, they sign different kinds of contracts than the male soccer teams.
Oh, and here's a funny thing, too. If I'm not wrong, the women's, like, soccer team, Olympic soccer team, lost to 15-year-old soccer boys.
Well, there's also another thing about that is, you know how they said that, the female soccer team makes more money than the male soccer team. When they've actually looked at the actual stats, the women's soccer team lost millions of dollars. While the men's soccer team actually made money despite not winning any major amount in.
That's as entitled as me suing YouTube because I don't make as much money off my channel as PewDiePie. That's how fucking entitled that is.
Right.
Because he draws a bigger audience than I do.
Yeah, they
are generally more talented.
Women are
fuck off, Jada.
doing. All right.
I said general.
Bringing more audiences than men in the soccer, and it's like, nope, that's not true, and they're not bringing in more money either.
God. Lonely Wolf says
women's tennis is better than men's tennis. Yeah, I'll agree with you.
Wait. Lonely Wolf, read the entire chat comment. It says, I prefer women's tennis than men's because the ball moves a little bit slower. You can keep track with it. Keep up with it.
Yeah, what balls are we talking
about that he did in his chat comment?
Are there the kind that there's 4 on each side?
That was good, Lonely Wolf. You're saying, Rash?
I'm just talking about what kind of balls is he talking about. He's talking about the ones that
fuck off, Rash.
Are you referring to a trap in female?
Actually, no. I was just talking about boobs.
Oh. No one watches the Cowboys play football when the cheerleaders are on the sidelines. I mean, it's true. They usually pay attention to more to that.
And you are a Cowboys fan, Crusader.
It's true, but that's just because most people hate my Cowboys.
This reminds me of a good joke right here. If you're ever afraid of a tornado hitting you in Houston, go to Cowboy stadiums because there's never a touchdown there.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Volleyball is fun to watch and gymnastics.
I told that to one of my coworkers.
How do you keep a Detroit Lion out of your backyard? Put up a goalpost.
I didn't catch it all, loudmouth.
Or what do you call 43 guys watching the Super Bowl on a big screen, high definition TV? The Detroit Lions.
Right. Okay, so we went on a long time just reading the first half of that title. Okay, starting over. 18. Despite being as successful as male athletes, I can't even say that with a straight face, women in sports still face gender inequality. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization studied sports coverage and found that there were significant differences in the way that female athletes and their games were discussed in the sports media.
No.
You don't think?
Coverage of women in sports, says the organization, is often dominated by references to appearance, age, or family life. Men are depicted as powerful, independent, dominating, and valued as athletes. Well, I hate
More
to sound like a
muscle
broken
mass, more
record,
speed.
but the physical generalities, that's going to make them talk more about the performance of the dudes. And with the females, I mean, there's actually like a females league of football as well. And
Yeah, the lingerie football league.
yeah, basically they're just in football pads and helmets and wearing bikinis.
You know, that's
Although I will say the game is a little bit fun too to watch.
You know, that's actually probably, ironically, a safer
Don't
game
forget the loop,
than the ones with the full-blown padding.
What do you say, Rash?
Oh, I'm just like, I don't know if you've heard like the statistics with the fact that it's actually safer to go without any padding or helmets. In fact, because when people have that on, they have a more sense of safety, and so they are more aggressive.
Right.
That's why rugby injuries are so low, because they teach them how to tackle properly and they're not wearing pads.
Yeah, exactly.
Besides gendered conversations by sports pundits, female athletes are still trying to fight against the wage gap that exists in the sports world. Try to attract a bigger audience, as we were kind of insinuating a little bit earlier.
Or at least make more money.
Get more endorsements.
Right. Most notably, the United States women's soccer team recently filed a lawsuit against the U.S. Soccer Federation alleging gender discrimination.
And it was recently denied.
What you say, Rash?
And it got thrown out.
Because the lawsuit was baseless.
One at a time. What were you saying, Rash?
It was recently turned down. It was because it was baseless.
Yeah, it was totally baseless. Like I said, it was the equivalent of me suing YouTube because PewDiePie gets more money than me. It's that baseless.
Right. Despite winning more games and bringing in more revenue than the U.S. men's team, Megan Rapinoe and her comrades, what is this, communist Russia?
Yes, comrade, let's get more money.
On the USWNT earn less than half of what the men do. Okay, that's the end of the article. And Lonely Wolf says in the chat here, J-Lo and Shakira kind of overshadowed the Super Bowl show. I didn't even know who was playing and who won. I only watched the halftime bit. Fuck you,
The Chiefs won.
Wolf.
But yeah, back to that one.
Chiefs!
Back to that last part where they said that the women's soccer team makes more money than them it's just completely false, because they've shown, they've gone into the data, and it's absolutely false, because the women's team has actually lost money for soccer, while the men's team actually brought in money. They actually gained money within the men's team, and considerably.
And
I feel like
they lost the game against 15-year-old boys.
Yeah, the entitlement of that you can draw a massively lower audience but still think you're entitled to equal pay because reasons.
Also, I just find it petty. Also very petty in the sense that you're complaining about, oh, he got 10 million while I only got 8 million. That sounds also kind of petty and very elitist thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. If there was actual sexism, I would myself sue, but I wouldn't go full out complaining to the world that, oh, they're not getting enough money. Blah, 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 blah. It's like you sound so elitist
and entitled.
Right. Okay. So, moving on from laughing at feminist stupidity, we're going to move on. You know what? I might just save these two articles right here for a later time. But we're definitely going to read these three articles that I have lined up right up next year.
Oh, yeah.
So moving on from laughing at feminists and going on to the more hot button, more controversial topic, coronavirus, and talking about the stats and what should be done and all that stuff. Well, not so much as to what should be done, but more about stats and so forth. Like, for all those that watched last week's program, where that was like basically reacting to the Sarah Brady arrest. I right afterwards gone reviewing these two articles. I did not actually read them, but I was like explaining as to how that they were determining what they were trying to determine. Basically, they were arguing for the possibility that they aren't being overcounted, that the COVID-19 deaths are being overcounted. They were arguing against that narrative. But oddly enough, they were explaining that it was going off by just basically assumptions and whatnot, maybe arguably perhaps professional assumptions, but not off of any positive tests for COVID-19 for those people that died because of, possibly COVID-19. So there's still a bit of skepticism to go with the numbers, I say, just in general. And I'm not going to put a percentage as to what COVID-19 deaths are being diagnosed as COVID-19 directly caused deaths. But still, there's still a little bit of line of skepticism, and kind of proving that is that, or excuse me, not proving that, but to kind of reinforce that skepticism just a little bit, there is this claim going around that, first off, this article shared on Facebook talking about how U.S. hospitals getting paid more to label cause of death as coronavirus. Now, I don't know the actual credibility of this claim because when I gone researching it myself,
I'm very skeptical of this claim.
Yeah, I actually found some articles, one in particular that goes challenging this claim, but it's a bit of a big back and forth between the claim of whether or not it's actually happening or not, and so I'll have to research more into it. And actually, oddly enough, this article is kind of an older one. It's May 2nd, so I would have to find something a little bit more recent that goes talking about this. But just to kind of sort of amuse us just a little bit, Senator Scott Jensen, okay, you're not quoting any professionals on this. You're quoting a senator, so that kind of makes us question the claim. Oh, first published on April 15th, 2020 is what this says. Never mind, I was wrong. Represents Minnesota. He's also a doctor. He appeared on Fox News with Laura Ingraham, where he revealed a very disturbing piece of information, assuming it's true anyways. Dr. Scott Jensen says the American Medical Association is now encouraging doctors to overcount coronavirus deaths across the country. Jensen received a 7-page document that showed him how to fill out a death certificate as a COVID-19 diagnosis, even when there isn't a lab test confirming the diagnosis. Right now, Medicare is determining that if you have a COVID-19 admission to the hospital, you get $13,000. If that COVID-19 patient goes on a ventilator, you get $39,000, 3 times as much. Nobody can tell me after 35 years in the world of medicine that sometimes those kind of things impact on what we do. This is absolutely bone-chilling. Watch the interview below. Yeah, it's about 5 minutes. So we're going to, I guess we'll end up being more reacting to a video than anything else, because this is like a very short article, the actual reading portion of it. But it's Fox News, so take it with a big grain of salt, or even dismiss it if you want to. But
is a doctor and state senator in Minnesota who is deeply troubled by the CDC's latest guidance for counting COVID deaths. Dr. Scott Jensen joins me now. Doctor, I want to read for our viewers what the CDC says in part about how to count COVID deaths relating to that last issue we just raised. In cases where a definite diagnosis of COVID cannot be made, but is suspected or likely, like the circumstances are compelling with a reasonable degree of certainty, it is acceptable to report COVID-19 on a death certificate as probable or presumed. So, doctor, what's the problem with that?
Well, in short, it's ridiculous. I spent some time earlier today just going through the CDC's manual on how to complete death certificates and the parts that were specifically written for physicians. And in that manual, it talks of precision and specificity, and that's what we were trained with. The determination of
and I do want to say premise that if you guys want to add a little quick comment in response to this video, just tell me to pause whenever.
The cause of death is a big deal. It has impact on estate planning. It has impact on future generations. And the idea that we're going to allow people to massage and sort of game the numbers is a real issue, because we're going to undermine the trust. And right now, as we see politicians doing things that aren't necessarily motivated on fact and science, the public's their trust in politicians is already wearing thin.
And doctor, in that same CDC guidance sheet on COVID-19, it references the fact that basically this is a judgment call for doctors on how to fit, I read it, what goes on line 1 and then what goes on line 2 and what goes on the final line as far as contributing factors and ultimate cause of death. But they concede that it is a judgment call. Again, why is that not correct?
Well, let's just take influenza. If I have a patient died a month ago, had fever, cough, and died after 3 days, and maybe had been an elderly, fragile individual, and there happened to be an influenza epidemic around our community.
And I do want to say in response to that, that it's not like just all the optimists that are like saying, oh, look at the flu. I mean, it's very similar. There's also like this Market Watch article that I just read a little bit earlier today. I'm going to link it down below.
Oh, just the flu, bro?
What?
Just the flu, bro?
No, well, they were not saying that it's just the flu. They were saying that COVID-19 is worse than the flu. But when you go at reading the actual article itself, they basically do admit at one point that it does have pretty similar symptoms in a lot of cases. Not as bad in pneumonia or respiration, or at least that's my assumption anyways. They did not mention much about respiration and pneumonia. But all the same, they're saying the pretty similar symptoms. So there's a bit of evidence right there that as to why it might get confused for a COVID-19 death when it might just be, a plain flu death mixed with that death statistic. And at the same time, they were also saying, oh, this is the reason why it's worse than the flu and this and this and that and the other thing. And the article was, by my own reading of the article, it seemed to be only marginally higher. Like they cited Fauci, Dr. Fauci, who said that the regular seasonal flu fatality rate, is 0.1%. And he said that it's 10 times that for COVID-19. 10 times for that would add up to just 1%, going from 0.1%.
Yes, I can agree with that probably, but the 1% is still pretty high when it's a disease that's this infectious.
Yeah. I mean, I generally heard 2 and 3% actually. I've read one article, counted one article that goes mentioning a 7% fatality rate.
I doubt that it's that high, but the thing is, with 1%, if it infects the American population, how many deaths is 1%?
Right. 3.3 million.
Yeah, exactly. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. So, now we need to do an Epstein COVID meme, says Set1000. Anyway, moving on.
I wouldn't put influenza on the death certificate, and I've never been encouraged to do so. I would put probably respiratory arrest would be the top line, and the underlying cause of disease would be pneumonia. And in the contributing factors, I might well put emphysema or congestive heart failure. But I would never put influenza down as the underlying cause of death. And yet that's what we're being asked to do here.
Dr. Fauci was asked about the COVID death count today. Here's what he said in part.
What do you say to those folks who are making the claim without really any evidence that these deaths are being padded, that the number of COVID-19 deaths are being padded?
You will always have conspiracy theories when you have very challenging public health crises. They are nothing but distractions.
Conspiracy theories, doctor? So you're engaging in conspiracy theories. What do you say to Dr. Fauci tonight?
Well, I would remind him that anytime healthcare intersects with dollars, it gets awkward. Right now, Medicare has determined that if you have a COVID-19 admission to the hospital, you'll get paid $13,000. If that COVID-19 patient goes on a ventilator, you get $39,000, 3 times as much. Nobody.
So he's saying it's a scam by the medical community. Yeah. Oh, give me a break.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go. No. I don't know. I would say that I would not go that far to say that it's a hoax or anything like that.
Seems to be what this guy's arguing.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll have to look more into this claim, and I'll do a summary as we go finishing this video.
I mean, this virus is very real.
Myth Cuttlefish says it's more infectious than it is deadly. That is something to kind of take into consideration with the death rate. I mean, the raw number death rate, as we mentioned in a couple episodes of Strike Force ago, Loudmouth, the raw death rate is higher than that of a lot of other things like gun homicides, for example. But at the same time, if the infection rate is so freaking high, much higher than that for other diseases, well, then the raw number is obviously going to get climbing up there, even if the ratio might be low.
Oh yeah, because if it has an infection rate of let's say the flu has an infection rate of 10% and this has an infection rate of 30%, then the death toll is going to be higher, even if it was just a same amount of death rate.
Right. And this virus both is 10 times the death rate per infection, and it's a lot more infectious. It's airborne. Just need to be around somebody with the disease and you can catch it.
Mikhail, the stray cat, says the CCP virus has gone a long way toward, I think he meant to say, from reminding me of a bit of George Carlin about the immune system and laughing at people who are afraid of germs. LOL. Okay.
It's a very serious thing. This virus is the biggest healthcare crisis in our lifetime. The virus killed a 5-year-old in my neighborhood.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, so it can affect kids.
Anyway, I'm going to continue on.
In the world of medicine, that sometimes those kinds of things impact on what we do. Some physicians really have a...
Hey, see you later, Crusader. Thanks for joining on and for laughing at some feminists.
All right.
As he says in the private chat that he's needing to leave.
All right.
Bent towards public health, and they will put down influenza or whatever because that's their preference. I try to stay very specific, very precise. If I know I've got pneumonia, that's what's going on the death certificate. I'm not going to add stuff just because it's convenient. I think that it's not a conspiracy theory at all.
Yeah. So you reject what he said.
Absolutely.
Actually, if anything, ironically, in China, the main way they were underreporting deaths is if someone would die of the virus, but they had a pre-existing condition, it would list that their death was of that condition, not the virus. They were kind of using that as a strategy to dramatically underreport their numbers. Plus, there's always the strategy is if you shoot the guy before the virus can kill him, it doesn't count as a death from the virus.
So you're basically saying that China is doing the opposite of what Dr. Scott Jensen is suspecting U.S. hospitals to be doing.
Correct. That's what they've been doing. Their death toll they've released, it's complete bullshit.
Yeah, I don't really have a doubt that China's numbers are higher than they actually are showing to be. But that's not really my dispute when it comes to the stats of coronavirus. Just speaking for myself.
Italy, where it's socialized medicine, I guess they don't have an interest in the money, if that's what it is here. And they just went back and they started reclassifying deaths according to their top scientific advisor. So they admitted that they were being liberal or generous in how they coded some of these deaths, and they're just going back and reclassifying them. Does that surprise you?
It really does. I mean, let's just take someone getting hit by a bus and they collapse along and they go into the emergency room and they're there for 15, 20 minutes. Blood work comes back, COVID test comes back positive, and they die 20 minutes later because of their collapsed lung.
Okay, is there any evidence that that's ever happened where they classified someone who got hit by a bus as a COVID-19 death? All right, I'm willing to bet that has never happened.
All right. Yeah, it is a little bit extreme.
I don't know about the collapsed lung, but there actually has been some cases where it might not have been related to the virus with certain deaths, or that it's later revised showing that it was not the virus that killed them.
I mean, I would not go as far as to what you're trying to refute and respond to, Loudmouth, in my skepticism anyways. So I'll grant that.
19? That doesn't make any sense.
Dr. Jensen, really important conversation. We really, really appreciate your.
All right. And like I said, that was from Fox News, so kind of uncredible source right there. I thought it was going to be like reading a lengthier article that was from a more credible website, but they were just going off of I don't know, almost a fringe like doctor being interviewed by a rather uncredible mainstream news source. So I'm going to have to like look more into that claim. I mean, on the one hand, like I said a little bit earlier, I have some reason to be suspicious of the actual raw death number itself from COVID-19. But on the other hand, I don't want to be trashing hospitals in light of this crisis.
Except for when they do TikTok videos.
Oh yes, and yes, yeah. That's the one thing I will trash them for. Do not be using TikTok.
So we're going to just wean off of the kind of bad news side of it. And like I said, I'll save these articles for another time because they might still be relevant in the future. But this from PennLive.com. UPMC doctor argues COVID-19 not as deadly as feared, says its hospitals will shift back to normal. All right. A UPMC doctor on Thursday made a case the death rate for people infected with the new coronavirus may be as low as 0.25%. 0.25%. That's news to me. And and even
that actually is possible because there was this one study that that tested a whole bunch of people in this town, and it said that an antibody study that said that the infection rates were higher than they expected, but a lot of the people weren't really feeling sick. So it is quite possible a lot of people are
there's been
infected, but
shown up that should be considerably higher a number of people who are infected or were infected.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not going to say outright that's not true. In fact, I might still use this as some piece of evidence to at least consider. But even me as an optimist, I'm somewhat doubtful that it's that low. I mean, I say that it's pretty freaking low, but that...
Yeah, I am too, but I'm saying it's not impossible. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, far lower than the mortality rates of 2 to 4% or even higher cited in the earlier days of the pandemic. Dr. Donald Yealy based it partly on studies of levels of coronavirus antibodies detected in people in New York and California, and partly on COVID-19 deaths in the Pittsburgh region. The studies found that 5 to 20% of people had been exposed to the coronavirus, with many noticing only mild illness or none at all, he said. That's another thing to like take into consideration when it is like coming to judging the stats. Like, there's so many people that might not even know that they're infected, but yet they're not being included in the stat. If they were to be like included in the stat, if we were to get like a positive test or whatnot, that would drop the death rate, the fatality rate to be a lot lower. The severity of the COVID-19 virus to be considerably lower in general. We've learned that way more people, far more people have actually been exposed to the infection without any knowledge of it. That makes the overall death rate much lower, said Yealy, who is UPMC's chair of emergency medicine. Many people just didn't feel sick at all and recovered without difficulty. Yealy went on to offer a hypothetical scenario of 3% of Allegheny County residents being exposed, a conservative number compared to the findings of the New York and California studies. That would mean about 36,000 people in Allegheny have been exposed to the coronavirus, with 94 COVID-19 deaths in the county as of Thursday. It would mean 0.25% of people exposed to the coronavirus had died, he said. There's a big difference between 0.25% mortality and 7%, Yealy said. There's a 7% that I said that I had read as high as a little bit earlier. Come on, Truegrave says, come on, Dark Con. Fox News is uncredible. It's all mainstream media sources are uncredible. Yeah, I mean, I'm given the benefit of the doubt of that, Truegrave, that if you're going to dismiss Fox News, I wouldn't blame you. And I am very well questioning of it myself. So it's why that I'm going to look into it more.
Well, that's why I always say you have to take these kinds of things with a grain of salt, whatever source of news it comes from. And you always have to check on both sides.
You got your data from good old Jim. I assume you're talking about Mr. Medicare and not me, right?
Right. Yeah, most likely. But I mean, I did not expect that this was going to like turn into a Fox News reaction video looking at this article. I guess I should have like boycotted it, but only some of my articles do I actually go pre-reading before these news streams. Some of the others I don't go pre-reading, like this one right here and the next one as well. Yealy said about 1,300 people in Allegheny have tested positive for COVID-19. That would mean, in his hypothetical scenario, another 34,700 had been exposed but had no symptoms. He noted the latter group may also have antibodies to protect them from future infection. Although he pointed out it's still unknown how much protection people get from previous exposure to the new coronavirus. Yealy further said the majority of the deaths among UPMC patients involved people over 80, with many being nursing home residents. Yealy has been one of the main public voices of UPMC during the coronavirus pandemic. He spoke Thursday during a 40-minute online discussion with reporters. Another speaker, Dr. Rachel Sakrowitz, the chief medical officer for UPMC's intensive care units, said 234 COVID-19 patients have recovered and been discharged from UPMC hospitals. This is very good news. It means people are getting better, and we're all on the right track together. Yealy said only 2% of the UPMC system's 5,500 beds are occupied by COVID-19 patients, and the number of new COVID-19 patients is declining. He cited that figure in explaining UPMC's plans to quickly increase its volume of the non-emergency surgeries that were largely banned to conserve beds and supplies for COVID-19 patients. Yeah, like transitioning surgeries. Anyone? Oh, the trans people, they're so oppressed. The ban is now being eased as the volume of COVID-19 patients falls short of worst-case predictions. The official said UPMC remains ready to deal with any upturn in COVID-19 cases. Yealy said he can't predict if there will be a second wave, which we'll read that next episode of Strike Force, by the way, folks. Can't predict if there will be a second wave, but said, what I suspect is COVID-19 will be a part of our experience treating patients for an extended period of months to maybe years. Yealy was asked whether people should worry about COVID. And you know what? That is like a good point that Matt Walsh had made on the most recent episode of his that I had watched. He said that we're going to have to reopen if we want the economy to survive, if we want society to return to normal at all. COVID-19 is with us for good, and it probably will be with us even in the most minute scale. It's going to be with us to stay. I mean...
Probably. Yeah. It's probably going to come back year after year. The CCP virus probably will be part of our lives for the rest of eternity.
Hashtag fuck the Chinese Communist Party.
And
fuck
who?
the Chinese Communist Party.
And who?
And
World Health Organization.
Yeah, and all organizations controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Never mind. I'm not going to do that. I was going to do a Dr. Seuss joke, but it probably wouldn't have. It wouldn't have been as snappy. Yealy was asked whether people should worry about COVID-19 more than the regular flu. He said people should be worried differently, pointing out that both take their heaviest toll on the elderly, especially nursing home residents and people weakened by other medical conditions. Yealy said he would not think of it as more or less just two different illnesses that share some features but have some distinct differences. Sakrowitz said she expects COVID-19 will be part of the ongoing disease burden affecting Americans, and as with the flu, doctors will find treatments. End of that article. And I will say that at least this was a whole lot more credible. This article right here was more credible than the last one.
Yeah, the last one was bullshit. This one had points I could possibly believe.
The last one was like red flag, red flag, red
yeah,
flag.
The one about getting hit by the bus, I'm like, yeah, bullshit.
All right. So this article right here specifically is not advocating for this, more like they're doing their own response, but I thought we'd give our own reaction to it as well. Harvard law professor wants to ban homeschooling because Christians do it. Yes, thank you. There is like a disproportionate amount of Christians who end up doing homeschooling more than atheists and agnostics. Thanks, Mr. Obvious. Anyway, Elizabeth Bartholet, a professor at Harvard Law School, managed to break through the endless COVID-19 news cycle when she was quoted extensively by Harvard Magazine, citing her recently published article, Homeschooling, Parents' Rights Absolutism versus Child Rights to Education and Protection.
You do know that homeschooled kids actually have higher educational scores on average?
And I got a question for you. Were you public schooled all your life, Loudmouth?
Yes.
Okay. And I do want to say that I was homeschooled all my life, personally.
Well,
I was also homeschooled like, all my life.
Well, school was never really that good for a kid with autism.
You were homeschooled all your life? Well, then how the fuck did you end up as such a flaming faggot?
A little bit edgy there.
Yeah. The edge. I live for it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I actually remember there was a meme that was shared talking about this article, the original article that posted this person's opinion anyways. Basically, on one of the books in the picture, it said arithmetic, and it spelled arithmetic wrong. And basically, that misspell was pointed out by hundreds of homeschoolers. And so they had to go back and correct themselves. They felt like a jackass right afterwards.
Yeah. You're right, Cut. What was it? Someone in the chat says, Mikkel, the stray cat says, you're right, which is why Bill Gates is pushing the vaccine plus microchip cocktail. I don't know if he's doing anything with microchips, but China's firewall was mostly built by Microsoft and Cisco, so a big chunk of his portion is based on the oppression of the Chinese people, so fuck Bill Gates.
Lonely Wolf 1980 says the banning homeschooling article made my blood boil. Yeah, because the person is advocating for something that would end up with you having to educate more kids, Lonely Wolf, as those kids are being forced into the public schools.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Lonely Wolf has come out before saying that he is a teacher.
Yes. Yeah, but I mean, if we homeschool kids, they might not learn about all the great things that communism has done for us.
Oh yeah,
they need to learn.
They won't learn about gender theory. Oh
yeah, I know.
Tragically, Bartholet's concern for children, which she is using as a bludgeon to attack conservative Christians. Oh, think for the children.
Oh, somebody please think of the children.
It's authentic but horribly corrupted. Bartholet is a woman who, by all accounts, truly cares about children ahead of politics or agendas, yet has fallen prey to the left's manic need to substitute the state for the parent, or more accurately, for the traditional Christian parent, more specifically. Okay. Masking her disdain for conservatives behind a veneer of concern for children's welfare, Bartholet's argument concludes that homeschooling threatens not just children but society because the majority of homeschoolers are conservative Christians and thus indoctrinate their children with religious ideology and anti-democratic notions. I mean, are they being taught in a theocratic way that they have to like enforce their own Christian ideology upon everybody? I mean, that would be the bigger concern right there. I mean, I would say that in our modern day society that most Christians just in general are not very theocratic. If you talk about to put it simply, libertarianization of the modern day conservative movement, and factoring that there are in fact a lot of liberals and Democrats who are Christians themselves, I doubt that it's a huge swath of people that want to like enforce Christianity or whatever. So there's no bigger indoctrination tool than public schools, says True Grave. Yeah, fair enough. I was a math teacher for 8 years. I work now as an online tutor and work during the day as a data entry monkey, says Lonely Wolf.
Yeah.
You're getting your species mixed up wrong, Lonely Wolf. You're a wolf, not a monkey, damn it. It's also important that children grow up exposed to community values, social values, democratic values, ideas about non-discrimination and tolerance of other people's viewpoints, Bartholet asserts. Yeah, that's why that homeschooling parents take their kids out to little community organizations like my parents did with me for high school robotics, for example. Before arguing for a presumptive ban on homeschooling parents, specifically those guilty of not agreeing with tolerant progressives. It's clear Bartholet's biggest concern is ideology. You know what? It probably would have been a better idea if I had like actually pulled up the original article, perhaps. But anyway, we're already here, so it's clear Bartholet's biggest concern is ideology. Bartholet has a long career of advocating for child welfare policy, so her alleged concerns for child safety are almost convincing. However, she gives the game away when she lists the potential costs of her proposed restrictions on homeschooling. Yeah, like sending in police and bureaucrats to handle all those services and whatnot. Values are... Oh, Myth Cuttlefish getting passionate in the chat. Values are taught by the family. Curse word emoji, curse word emoji, curse word emoji. Bartholet's only concern is not that children may be subjugated to failing school systems or become victims of bullying, reasons commonly cited by homeschooling parents as their motives for pulling their children out of school. These concerns she dismisses out of hand. Boo! Boo! Boo with me, loudmouth. Boo. Because she's not even according to this article, she's not even like addressing the whole bullying side as to why that people want to homeschool. I mean, and you said that you kind of went through somewhat of that kind of stuff yourself, right?
Kind of.
Getting tired, loudmouth?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
You okay?
I'm all right.
Yeah, I think he's just getting tired. I'm kind of getting there myself. Gonna get some dinner right after this. Anyway, no. Bartholet's largest worry is that since some public schools may reflect the conservative regions in which they are located, students may still be forced to attend some schools that teach views and values that mirror those of conservative Christian homeschoolers. It's very difficult to argue you're just trying to protect the kids when the biggest worry you can conjure is that some students may still need to interact with religious folk. Yeah, kind of hard to believe of when that in the rural area you're still going to have like end up with the school board with a good portion of them being like conservative Christians themselves. As outrageous as Bartholet's arguments are, there are enough commentators rightfully skewering her article's wildly fallacious reasoning and anecdotal evidence. The real tragedy of Bartholet's article is not its sheer ignorance and bigotry, although that in itself is staggering and disappointing for a scholar who once prized rigorous research and due process. Bartlett has previously spoken out publicly against the flaws in President Obama's Title IX policies and the excessive hysteria of the Me Too movement. Interesting. She once recognized children's right to their parents. In the 1990s, as reproductive technology became increasingly common, Bartlett advocated caution. A former patient of numerous in vitro fertilization attempts before adopting her 2 sons from Peru, Bartlett recognized the inherent dangers of treating children as commodities to fulfill parents' desires. In 1998, the New York Times, covering the rise of donor eggs from women selling their healthy eggs to infertile women, quoted Bartlett as saying, "The selling of human eggs sacrifices the donor's human dignity. It also encourages women to bear children who are not genetically related to them." Oh, God. I mean, you're going to end up with that same kind of problem with foster raising. I mean, it's not that big of an issue in the grand scheme of things, just in my opinion. This practice produces children who have lost one genetic parent in a world that already has an abundance of orphans who need homes. We need to call a halt to further commercialization of reproduction to give policymakers a chance to consider the ethical issues involved in reproductive technology. Nearly 2 decades later, in 2017, Bartlett authored a full-throated endorsement of legislation introduced by Senator Roy Blunt, Republican of Missouri, or wait, I can't remember. Is MO Missouri or Minnesota or Montana? Montana or I don't know. I'm sorry. Excuse my stupidity on that, folks. Arguably one of the Senate's most conservative members that would have benefited children abroad who were eligible for international adoptions. Bartlett wrote, Children's right to parenting is perhaps their most fundamental right, short of their right to life itself. Institutions have been definitively shown to impose devastating harm to children's physical, emotional, and mental development, destroying their life potentially and their ability to enjoy all other human rights. These are not the words of a heartless elitist. Indeed, over a career spanning decades, Bartlett has argued repeatedly in defense of children and in support of their dignity. She has condemned the manufacturing of children in labs, advocating for adoption instead, and has urged politicians to restructure foster care and child welfare systems to better protect society's most vulnerable members. Missouri, says Cuttlefish. Thank you for reminding me. My bad. I feel like a jackass. Leftist rot has gone to her head. Unfortunately, very few can remain unscathed after spending their lives locked in an ivory tower of academics who have lost their heads to a liberalism-run riot. Bartlett is no exception, and the proof is in her confused and contradictory positions. Bartlett insists policymakers should put children, not parents, first, but when recounting her own adoption journey, she frames it as a decision made based on her own desires. I decided that I wanted more children, regardless of whether I was married, she states, emphasis added, before recounting a frantic multi-year journey to procure a second child at any cost, with no mention given to where her biological child was as she crisscrossed the country for infertility treatments. She argues for loving homes for children, but has suggested that single adults seeking to adopt be given the same preference as married couples.
That's stupid as fuck, though, because it's been proven overwhelmingly that 2-parent homes are much better for children's development.
Yeah, fair enough. Probably shouldn't be given the same consideration, but what would you think? Do you think that it would be better for a kid if they got adopted by a single parent or a single adult, or if they just ended up living in foster care all their life?
I would definitely say adopted by a single parent in that case, but in terms of adoptions, couples should absolutely be given preferential treatment.
Fair enough. Since many of those couples will be
divorced, you say the preference, who should receive preferential treatment?
The couple over the single.
I see it. Yeah, it probably is better overall.
How much you want to bet JC Armitage says, how much you want to bet she's going to pull the whole homeschooled children are socially isolated card in this article? This article was more in response to Bartholet. This isn't the article that goes promoting the idea of banning homeschool, JC. So just to clarify on that, yeah, I probably should have definitely searched for the original article of this for us to respond to. But that is a bit of a... I'm not going to lie, that's a little bit of a stunt in my own social development, is that I did not have as good of a social development, I think in part because of the fact that I was homeschooled, but I still think my parents did the best that they could in that area. Anyway, since many of those couples will be divorced in a few years, quote unquote, anyways, she wants to defend the bonds of family, especially a voluntary family, but cannot accept a vision of human society in which individuals are actually capable of maintaining those bonds and serving the good of each other. Bartholet's desire to defend the rights of children is admirable, but the ever more dictatorial forces of liberalism around her, preaching a religion of personal desires above all else, keep her from being wholly coherent or convincing in her arguments. I do want to argue for Bartholet that that the writer of this response article right here is probably using a botched definition of liberalism, because she says dictatorial forces of liberalism. I mean, then again, the modern day term of liberalism has been botched by the left, but I digress. What she cares about is controlling kids' minds, as shown by her support of blunt legislation and advocacy of placing children with adoptive parents rather than letting them languish in the system. Bartholet understands on some level that a nurturing, loving family is what's best for a child. But in her rabid attack on homeschoolers, parents are no longer the best guardian of a child's happiness. That's the mindset of these people when they be forcing kids into public school. They are suddenly tyrannical ideologues who, before they can be trusted to raise their own children, must prove to the state that they will not beat their offspring with Bibles while reciting Ku Klux Klan propaganda. Yeah. Think of the children. They're going to be taught by a super minority of the population to be a bunch of racists. Highly unlikely. That is not to say that abuse has not happened in families who homeschool, just as abuse has happened at the hands of public school officials and staff. But it is nothing like the widespread epidemic Bartholet would have her audience believe. To her, homeschoolers' true crime is being conservative and worse, Christian. This almost seems exaggerative, some of the claims here about Bartholet's thoughts on Christianity. I'm not going to lie, folks. I should have tried harder to find the original article, but the original article was not popping up right off the bat in my search for the article, so I went along with this. But anyway, continuing on nonetheless, although nearly all homeschoolers do not fall into this category, Bartholet is blissfully unaware of such an inconvenient fact. But again, children's safety is not truly her concern here. If it was, she would not have spilled so much ink fretting about the nefarious Christian parents. Her worry, and the worry of all those who argue for weakening the parent-child bond, is that these parents will raise children who adhere to a vision of the good that differs from the morally acceptable viewpoints held by academics in their coastal conclaves. It's tempting to dismiss Bartholet as another elitist Ivy League professor, easily mocked for her obscenely out-of-touch positions. But while she does fit that descriptor, and the tone of her recent attack on homeschooling is condescending to the point of nausea, such a dismissal would only obfuscate the true malignancy. Bartholet is a clear example of the distortion of even well-ordered desires, such as the desire to protect children, at the heart of leftism's corruption. No longer is she fighting to protect children from true abuse. Now she is fabricating abuse to undermine parents who may seek to raise their children according to a different set of beliefs from hers. End of article. So, what do you guys think overall in regards of this whole issue?
I think it's just another example of the left wanting more social control in a way that I kind of find creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may, like, just ask out of curiosity, if you two were to like ever get kids yourselves, would you lean more towards possibly homeschooling them rather than public schooling them, or how do you
I
lean?
don't know if I'd be equipped to do that, so I'd probably be public schooled, but I don't know.
I would probably go towards private school.
I highly doubt I'll ever have kids.
What you say, Loudmouth?
Highly doubt I'll ever have kids, though.
Don't.
Don't cut yourself short, man.
I don't know. I've been really down in the dumps lately. The society being shut down, it's really gotten to me lately.
Yeah, all the freaking bars and gyms aren't open, and the churches. Like I'm missing out on some of my own social interactions. Like the best.
Fucking depressing, man.
Yeah.
The fucking what the Communist Party of China did to us.
Yeah. Let happen, and might as well have done. I'm missing out on a lot of my social interaction. The best that I could do is visit friends on occasion, but even that is like discouraged by.
And there's nowhere you can really go because this virus is worldwide. You can't leave the planet.
Well, astronauts that are in the space station.
Right.
Yeah. What if the space station gets infected with the CCP virus? Then what? The moon, from what I hear, has no infections, but no one's been there in a while.
Yep. Oh.
Milk cup. What's done is done. Loudmouth. You got to go roll with it. Yeah, I know, but it's really. But I don't know.
Mikhail says, "Why'd the bars have to close?" Well, they're able to cater for them that have like that decent enough of a food menu anyways. But the reason as to why that they're closed is the whole social distancing thing and trying to avoid those crowded areas and so forth. That's the main thing.
And bars can get pretty crowded.
Man, I want the gym to get back in gear.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm getting flabby and fat because I can't go to the gym, man.
I'm just getting mentally drained with doing like a weighted jog down the block 2 times a week rather than being able to go to a gym with weights and machines 3 times a week. It's kind of mentally and spiritually draining doing that.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Instead of like doing it in a bright, shiny, more welcoming and warming environment around.
I love going to the gym. Love pumping that iron.
JC Armitage says in the chat here something interesting. If you ever wanted to make these anti-homeschooling nut bars experience major cognitive dissonance, just remind them that the Nazis banned homeschooling when they were in power. That is interesting. I'll definitely have.
That is true. And another fun fact about the Nazis is they were actually the first society that ever recognized the negative health effects of cigarettes.
Oh.
Yes. But of course, anyone who would say that an anti-smoking advocate is a Nazi is an idiot. But that's just kind of an interesting fact. So it's not always that if a policy was similar to the Nazis, it's inherently bad, because obviously smoking is bad for your health.
And, if people like to conflate the idea of homeschooling your parents as more of a right-wing idea than a left-wing idea, well, then by that logic, the Nazis were left-wing on this one issue, apparently.
I don't know, but...
And that's a big if. I do not know if people have like a political spectrum consideration towards homeschooling versus private public schooling.
Generally, it leans more right, though.
Right. I'm sure enough. But anyway, no, my friend, the left purposefully stole the word liberalism for their socialist goals. Fair enough, Truegrave. That is quite unfortunate, which is why which is why Dave Rubin keeps on trying to call himself a classical liberal, but even he's kind of botched that term by making an ass out of himself constantly.
Yeah.
Guys.
Guys.
Anyway.
Yes, the Dave Rubin or Adam Friended thing. Guys.
Oh yeah. Adam Friended, he's a substantive. He's just there. He's just there.
Yeah.
That's what I go thinking whenever I hear him on a stream. He doesn't have a lot to contribute. He's just there. That's all. He's dead weight. Sorry, Adam, but not sorry.
Yeah, it's funny because it's true.
But anyway, I think this.
But what do you do to mostly to pass the time during quarantine?
What do we do?
Comics.
What do you say?
Well, what do you do to like pass the time during quarantine?
Read comics. I'm still in school, so I'm about to be finished with that.
That helps.
I write comics, and of course, there's all. I play some computer games, some video games, watch some streaming services, and and even now during the whole coronavirus pandemic, I'm still behind in watching my streaming services, my series on my streaming services.
And there's also the fact that I make videos too. That's also my other thing, but I did that before as well.
Yeah, I did that before.
Right.
For me, it's actually I've been pretty much relatively fine, except for the fact that I can't go to the gym. But my life hasn't really been extraordinarily impacted in the sense that of going on outings of any sort.
Well, with me, the thing is, I kind of I just naturally have high stress and depression, even in good times. And
I get it.
So when things kind of turn worse, it just kind of adds to that.
One thing I will say is that one thing about my life I will say this pandemic has kind of stunted is my quest on trying to find a girlfriend.
Aw, you can't find that black girlfriend.
Yeah. Yes.
What?
Just go find a slave ship. You'll be able to find her then.
Oh, dude. Dude. Work out, loudmouth, and meditate. Yes. I need to get into Falun Gong. Because that would be both a way to relieve stress and simultaneously piss off the Chinese Communist Party who created this fucking outbreak.
But anyway, I think this is where I'm going to end it. Pretty much we've gotten off of professional commentary of the news and more onto personal chatting, which I like the personal chatting, but I like to save that more for the hangout streams for the secondary.
I've actually, when the weather turns better, I've been taking my dog on long walks by the water. That kind of helps me pass the time. And it gets me some exercise.
Good thing that you don't live in California. Otherwise, the cops would find you like Blair White.
That's really fucked up what happened to Blair White. That walking your dog would be something by yourself just because you're not wearing a mask is insane. I've worn a mask when I go to like the grocery store and stuff, but not when I'm walking the dog outside. I just keep my distance from people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and all the dickheads that were just obsessed with hating on Blair White for that situation. I don't even think all the people that were like criticizing her were a whole bunch of passionate pro-cop, and I will say, yes, indeed, bootlickers, because there are some people that go too far with their cop support. Not bashing outright on cops or cop supporters, but there are those that go too far. I don't even think that these type of people are the most pro-cop type people. They're just passionate Blair White haters.
Well, it's not even just that. It's just it seems the majority of people who are saying things like that or saying that they wish the protesters to die of the coronavirus because they want the economy to reopen, saying that they're selfish and whatnot. It seems mostly it's the left, and it's not because they love cops. It's just they hate anything the right does or anything that a conservative person would do.
Yeah, And to give the benefit of the doubt, maybe there are some leftists who are protesting against the lockdown as well.
There are some, but it's just I'm talking about the crazy.
Well, honestly, I don't think that protest, the way that was done, was helpful.
No, I don't think how it was done was helpful. They could have done it a whole lot better, like actually wear the masks and do at least some social distancing. I think would have been better, and it would have been much more effective of a protest to show that you're serious about the virus, but also serious about wanting the country to open back up.
Yeah, though, what was I going to say? Though there has absolutely been some really stupid bits of government overreach, like what happened to Blair White's a great example. And another one here in Michigan was that people were forbidden to buy seeds for their garden, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
What?
Yeah, like what the fuck? That logically would mean you have to, if you like grow your own food, you have to go to the store less, and thus, if anything, that would help social distancing. And you're already in the store. It makes no sense.
Oh my gosh.
So I understand protesting dumb shit like that, but the protest, I don't think it was done right.
I'm going to definitely pull that up as a piece of evidence against the response video that I'm working out, because I'm responding to a normie who, like, I'm just getting so sick of all the normies that keep on dismissing the whole government growth side of this fucking pandemic.
Yeah, a lower economy is really bad for human life.
People's freedoms or anything else like that. And sadly enough, some of these people are my friends as well, so I don't want to be that harsh. But, and some of them are kind of apolitical, so they're not that attentive to the issues. But nonetheless, I get so sick of all the normies, and I'm going to keep on using that term, who keep on not acknowledging the government growth side of this issue. Government is growing unnecessarily, and they're using the pandemic as a wedge for it. Damn it.
If anything, governments, well, some of their actions have grown, but like in terms of their size and scope has been shrinking because if the economy shrinks, then the government's ability to collect money also shrinks with it, and the economy has been shrinking. I think it's 3%, which is a shocking. That's like similar to the Great Depression. Like we're living in the Second Great Depression.
I don't know if I would go that far. I mean,
I
think
would definitely go that far. In fact, it might be worse than the Great Depression.
Last
say
I
right
checked,
now, it might be
showed that it's not nowhere near quite as bad as the Depression. It might be as bad as the recession in 2008, but not.
Oh, it's already way surpassed that. But yeah, I think it's probably going to be worse than
whatever economic collapse happens. I think it's more likely to happen in the near future than it. I wouldn't say it's happening outright right now. I mean, other than the unemployment numbers, yes.
Well,
but
the thing about all these small businesses, and if they're not open soon, they're going to go out of business, and that's what's real. That's one of the worst effects of all this is going to be. We're going to lose a whole bunch of small business, and more power is going to be put into these corporate conglomerates. That's going to be really bad for this country.
Sent1000 asks normies. Somebody would have to give. Probably knows a better definition to define normies, but basically normies are people who are not that aware of all the more fringe ideas, particularly all the political ideas that go roaming around on the internet, like the alt-right, ANCAPs, and people like that. People that don't delve as much into countering head-on or learning about these ideas, or maybe even believing them in some cases.
It's probably to be a Debbie Downer, I know, but I mean, what is the big thing that Trump did that people are getting on his case over? He made a bunch of statements earlier this year that turned out to be way overly optimistic, and everyone's now pulling them out and making fun of him for it. So sometimes being too optimistic can be very bad for you. Sometimes you got to be prepared for the worst.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not there yet. Maybe if they open up things fast enough, maybe the economy can recover.
Even if with the government saying to start reopening, a lot of the states are not reopening. So,
yeah, well,
as much as I would like them to open, I would still say that it's the state's choice to decide when to open.
Yeah, well, that has me. What has me most worried is the small businesses and the fact that more power as a result of this crisis is going to both big corporate conglomerates, specifically to Amazon.com. The Amazonification of our society has been vastly increased by this, with people not being able to go to their local mom and pop shop anymore because those are closed down. They have to order more from Amazon, so they're
well, to be fair, though, Amazon gets a lot of its stuff through small businesses. A lot of the stuff on Amazon are through small businesses. They're just offered on through Amazon.
Right.
Oh, the nummies of the people, says Sent 1000. The people who don't want to think for themselves and want the government to think for them. I would say that they're. I think I know what you're getting to, Sent 1000. Normies would basically be people who like think in strict binary between Republican versus Democrat and not go thinking very much in libertarianism, and just not even necessarily ANCAPism, but just general monarchist libertarianism. But yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna try to wrap up the stream right here.
All right.
I think there was other things I wanted to say earlier, but never mind
Hookers and blow, man. Hookers and blow. Yes, so that would help spread the virus, but it would help with the depression.
Yes, and get Darkon a black big tittied girlfriend.
I'm more of a butt guy, so big tits is nice, but big butts is better.
Okay, well there you go. He wants a big butt.
And you cannot lie. Your other brothers can't deny that.
Yeah, exactly. So on that note, we're going to say goodbye. I'm the Dark Conservatarian. These are my co-hosts, Loudmouth and Rational Outlaw. Thank you all for joining along, and thank you, Crusader, who has joined a lot earlier and sharing this article on feminism. It was a hoot. I might even have to do a highlight reel of that. But anyway, y'all take care, stay safe, have a good night, and God bless you all.